In the quiet village of Amampaka, nestled deep within the heart of a vast African forest, a legend haunted its people for generations. It spoke of a hidden ancient palace, shrouded in mist and mystery, that was said to appear only under the light of a red blood moon. The hidden ancient palace was rumored to be enchanted, protected by spirits and unseen forces. It was a palace where time stood still, and where the living and the dead could cross paths. Chidinma, a spirited and beautiful young woman with an unquenchable thirst for adventure, had heard these stories all her life. Her grandmother, an elder with a deep melodic voice, would tell tales of the hidden ancient palace around the evening fire. It is a place of great power, she would say, her eyes glinting in the firelight. But it is not a palace for the faint-hearted. Only those with a strong spirit and a pure heart can find it. On the night of a red blood moon, Chidinma felt a pull she could no longer ignore. The forest had always called to her, its dense canopy and winding paths a second home. But tonight, it was different. The air was thick with anticipation, and the whispers of the forest seemed louder, urging her forward. She decided to seek the hidden ancient palace and discover the truth for herself. As she prepared to leave, her two closest friends, Chukwudi and Amaka, caught her in the act. "You're really going, aren't you?" Chukwudi asked, his voice low and serious. A young man with a protective nature, he had always watched out for Chidinma in quiet admiration of her beauty since they were children. Amaka, a clever girl with sharp eyes and an even sharper tongue, frowned. "Chidinma, this isn't some game. The elders speak of this palace for a reason. People who go looking for it don't always come back." Chidinma smiled, her eyes sparkling with determination. "That's why I'm going, to find out why." Chukwudi shook his head, but couldn't hide the small smile playing on his lips. "If you're going, then we're going. Right, Amaka?" Amaka sighed, rolling her eyes. "Fine, but if we get cursed, I'm hunting you both forever." Together, they entered the forest, the path growing darker and more twisted with each step. The trees loomed overhead like ancient sentinels, their branches twisting together to block out the moonlight. The sounds of the night grew louder, the hoot of an owl, the rustling of leaves, the distant call of a hyena. Suddenly, they came upon a fork in the path. In the center stood a large ancient baobab tree, its gnarled roots jutting out from the earth. Hanging from one of its branches was a small wooden charm, carved with strange symbols. "What does it mean?" Chukwudi asked, examining the charm closely. "It's a protection charm," Amaka whispered, "to ward off evil spirits." "But why would it be here?" Chidinma wondered aloud. As if in answer, a cold wind swept through the forest, sending shivers down their spines. The charm swung violently, pointing towards the left path. With a glance at each other, they followed the path, feeling the air grow colder with each step. After what felt like hours, they stumbled into a clearing, and there it was, the hidden ancient palace. It was even more imposing than the stories had described. The walls were covered in creeping vines, their leaves shimmering like emeralds in the moonlight. The roof was crowned with ancient thatch, and the windows were dark, reflecting nothing but the night. This palace is, Amaka started, but the words caught in her throat. Alive, Chidinma finished for her, her voice barely a whisper. They approached the massive, intricately carved wooden doors, their surfaces cracked and worn with age. Chidinma reached out, and the moment her fingers touched the door, it creaked open on its own, revealing a dimly lit corridor beyond. They stepped inside, the air immediately growing thick with the scent of burning herbs. And something else, something metallic. The walls were lined with old marks of ancestors, warriors, and spirits, each with eyes that seemed to follow them as they moved. This palace is ancient, Chukwudi muttered, his eyes darting around. I feel like we shouldn't be here. Look, Amaka said suddenly, pointing to the floor. A trail of wet footprints led deeper into the hidden ancient palace. Someone else is here, Chidinma whispered. They followed the footprints, which led them to a large hall. In the center of the room was a circular pit filled with glowing embers, and around it sat a circle of stone stools. On the far wall hung a large ornate mirror, its surface reflecting the fire's light. As they approached, Chidinma felt a strange pull toward the mirror. She wiped a hand across its surface, and the reflection of a young woman appeared. Her skin was dark, her eyes wide with fear and sadness. She wore a traditional Igbo attire. Who are you? Chidinma asked, stepping back. The woman's voice was soft, almost like a breeze. I am Adamma, the last keeper of this palace. I was cursed to remain here, bound by a dark force that holds my spirit captive. You must help me. Chukwudi grabbed Chidinma's arm, his voice tense. We should leave, now. But Adamma's eyes locked onto Chidinma's. You cannot leave, she said. Not until the curse is broken. What do we need to do? Amaka asked, her voice trembling but steady. The heart of the hidden ancient palace, Adamma replied. Find it, and you'll find the object that holds my spirit captive. Destroy it, and I shall be free. As the friends turned to leave the room, the door slammed shut behind them with a deafening bang. The fire in the pit roared, and suddenly they were plunged into darkness. Chidinma, Chukwudi shouted, but his voice was swallowed by the void. The darkness was absolute, and Chidinma felt as though she were falling through an endless abyss. She could hear Chukwudi and Amaka calling her name, but they seemed so far away. Then, as suddenly as it had come, the darkness lifted, and Chidinma found herself standing in a different room. She was alone. "Chukwudi! Amaka!" she called out, her voice echoing off the walls. No answer. She began to move, her footsteps echoing loudly on the stone floor. The corridor seemed to stretch on forever, twisting and turning like a serpent. As she walked, she felt as though the walls were closing in on her. Just as panic began to set in, she saw a doorway at the end of the hall, faint light spilling out from the cracks. Pushing it open, she stepped into a small room. In the center was a wooden chest, covered in intricate carvings of animals and spirits. A rusted padlock held it shut. Without thinking, she reached for the charm they had taken from the baobab tree. To her surprise, it fit perfectly. The chest creaked open, revealing a small wooden carving of a man's face. The moment she touched it, a wave of cold air swept through the room, and she heard a voice, faint and distant. "Destroy it," the voice pleaded. "Please." Without hesitation, Chidinma raised the carving and smashed it against the stone floor. A blinding light erupted from the shattered pieces, and the wind roared through the room, circling around her. Then, silence. She opened her eyes to find herself back in the hall with Chukwudi and Amaka. The mirror was cracked, Adamma's image gone. The air felt lighter, and for the first time since they had entered, there was a sense of peace. They hurried out of the hidden ancient palace, not looking back until they were safely outside. The red blood moon had set, and the hidden ancient palace seemed to fade with the light of dawn, slowly disappearing back into the forest from whence it came. Back in Amampaka, the legend of the hidden ancient palace would continue, but now it carried a new story of three friends who ventured into the unknown, faced their fears, and freed a spirit from its eternal prison.